Welcome back to C Morning Show. As we promised you before, we will have a talk show, and interesting for me personally at least. Before we dive into the matter, in 2010, the World Association for Sexual Health, or WAS, declared September 4th as World Sexual Health Day in an effort to promote a greater social awareness on sexual health across the globe.
And the first World Sexual Health Day was celebrated with the slogan, "Let's talk about it," to start breaking fears and taboos surrounding sexuality, especially for adolescents.
Adolescence is characterized by significant biological and psychological changes. Now, during this time, the increased production of androgen leads to increased sexual behavior, and this may contribute to early initiation of sexual activities.
So what do we need to know about adolescent changes related to World Sexual Health Day and the consequences behind it? Well, today we have in our studio Zoya Amirin, a sexual therapist. Good morning, Zoya.
Morning.
Thank you so much for your time and being here with us to talk about this really interesting topic.
Finally, that we have you in the studio.
Yes.
Usually we will have you in the monitor.
Zoom, right? It's definitely a different vibe to actually have her
Exactly.
in the studio, right?
All right. So we were talking about adolescence. Most teenagers will experiment with sexual behaviors at some stage. I did. Karina might also.
We all,
And
sure.
Unfortunately, their curiosity sometimes led to the wrong decision, and they might, end up with, STDs, right? Sexually transmitted disease, or even HIV, AIDS. And what's your opinion on this? What's your take on this?
The thing is, we call it these days sexual transmitted infection, not disease anymore.
Okay, infections.
Because
Yeah?
infection can lead so many things. It's not just a disease, but also the virus and everything else. The thing is, by this understanding that teenagers or adolescents is very curious about things, we really need to talk about sex with them. To help them understand and put meaning to what actually is sexual health. You cannot just okay, let's not talk about sex to the kids so they don't be curious. They're not asking us, but they're asking around. And that was actually very dangerous.
Yes.
If we're really talking and sit and talk about love and sex and expectation, what it means to have puberty, what it means for us to have what it feels when you have your, if you have attraction.
The changes in your body.
The changes in your body. How we put meaning on that. Am I normal, am I not? If we not, as a parents, especially as a parents first before, going to school and everything else, because you can put value, religion, beliefs, and what is a yes and no, what is okay for your family to understand about sexuality. It's not something to shame. Especially, I always if in Indonesia, most people say instead of genitals, they say kemaluan.
Exactly. They like to put some substitutions for genitals, for penis and vagina. They might have something in it. The birds and the bees, something like that.
And it's confusing because when you say when you teach little kids oh, this is a right hand, this is left hand, and this is feet and this, and when it comes to the genitals, suddenly you give a nursery names, and kids will feel something oh, there must be something wrong with the genitals because the adult would try to avoid it and they feel awkward about it. So our attitude as an adult around our kids, it's showing how comfortable we are about sexuality. Is that something normal? Is that something good? Is that something weird? It really depends. Giving sex education is not just about talking okay, kids, sit down, talking about this and that, biological and this and that. It was about our attitude towards sex. When there's an issues or in the news, you see people talking about sexual orientation, about consensual sex, about this and that, kids will ask. And when they say something, the F word, and they're running around, and parents was oh no, that's really something that they not understand what is that bad word.
That
but
actually
they
what happened in my
understand your
household.
Reaction.
That actually happened in my
I
household.
think most people.
Probably in
Yeah?
Indonesia, or probably Asia, yeah?
Asia and the Eastern culture.
The Eastern
too,
culture.
right?
Yeah.
I think with noting that specifically, but I think, us Asian culture or Eastern culture, we incorporate a lot of values and religion, tradition, right? That sort of sometimes cloud
Yes.
the confidence we can have in
Yes.
actually talking about it. Now, with that being said, like, how do you think the adolescents can actually implement consent into talking about this, and how do you think they can understand about the consequences behind sexual activities? How do you think we can have a more open and less, I'd say, maybe less awkward approach in being to just be able to talk about it
yeah.
openly?
I like that question. I'm so passionate this morning. Like,
Yeah.
the first of all, it's how, again, we are adults
Right.
around our kids. Our niece, nephew, daughter, sons. The first consent we can give is by asking them. For instance, like, oh my God, auntie miss you. Can I hug you?
Right.
Ask for their
As simple as
consent.
that.
As simple as that. When you have a baby, you can teach a baby about consent by doing what? Okay, I'm going to changing your pampers, okay? I'm going to take off your clothes. Everything, if you're about to touch their body,
Right.
either hug them, giving them love, whatever is that, ask for their consent. So when they grow up, they understand that, oh, my body is precious,
Right.
My body is not a
Valuable.
democracy.
Makes
My body is an it's an autocracy. I really have to be responsible of my own body. Nobody can touch me if I don't want to.
Right.
Including if you like, hi auntie, hi uncle, or grandma, grandpa, if they don't want to touch their hand, yeah, it's okay. Just teach them how to be like not rude, of course, to be like in a good manners without really touching if they're not comfortable too. So don't bribe your kids like, hey, you know what? Bunda will give you, mommy will give you these cookies if you hug the uncle, if you hug grandma and stuff like that. Like, don't. If they're not comfortable,
Right.
give them consent for not touching anyone.
Because it's
without
not
being rude.
transactional, yeah?
Yeah.
It's not, no. When it comes to puberty and also sex education and also we're tying out with the consent thing, which one should come first? The understanding of consent or the sexual education? When it comes to adolescents, yeah?
With it comes to adolescence, it's actually the sex education because the consent it's including in the sexual education. So if you have teenagers, at your home, it's very important for both of you, either you're single parents, single parents. If you are like you still have your spouses, talk about like, okay, in what age we agree that our kids can, have like a boyfriend or girlfriend, and in what age and why? Because you cannot say like, hey, because mommy says so, because daddy says so, you cannot do this and this. You cannot do like that anymore. You can say like, okay, can I trust you be a responsible person? Because when you become, because if you hit a puberty, so if you have like a wet dreams as a boy, if you have like a menstrual period as a woman, it means you can get pregnant. If you're boys, you already have a wet dream, it means that you can get someone, get a girl
You can
pregnant.
reproduce.
If you already have a menstrual period, you can get pregnant.
Right.
So, sometimes the most difficult things in teenagers' life is when you are falling in love. It's not just like about
Everything is so flowery.
right. It's clouding your judgment. In
Yes.
any age, I
Yes,
guess.
everything
True.
is beautiful.
It's in any age.
Very beautiful.
Falling
Hi,
in love with you like head over heels in the cloudy,
Yeah.
When you see somebody even in the roof of their roof, they're like, oh, the roof is so cute because he's in it or she's in it and stuff like that. When you like so overwhelmed with
I
that
feel like I'm
feeling.
laughing myself. I was actually in that
One of those
position like
guys.
lots of times.
We've been there. We've been there.
Been there, done that.
Yeah,
It's
for
clouding
sure.
your judgment.
Yes, that's,
So
I
give
agree.
them understanding like, you know what? It's normal when you're really head over heel in love with someone. You will, it's cloud your amygdala, your emotional brain
Right.
will screw
So we go
up.
scientific here, yeah? That's
Yeah.
actually, there's a scientific explanation behind that.
Exactly. Because when the amygdala is overwhelmed, it means your emotional brain is overwhelmed. It's clouding your prefrontal cortex, the executive judgment.
The logical side of
Yeah,
it.
the
right?
logical
Logical
side.
side of it,
You understand that you need to use condoms to prevent HIV,
Right.
to prevent pregnancy and sexual transmitted infection, but it's not really guarantee you will use that when you are in love.
Yeah.
Right.
So help them understand to have a good decision. It's not just happen to teenagers, to all of us.
No,
when
no,
we
no,
are in
for
love,
sure,
it's sometimes
yeah.
we can like stupid or silly.
We don't,
Yeah.
think, we don't think very
Crazy.
far.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's understandable. It's
Yeah, yeah.
neurological, you know?
Yeah.
So we need to make a good decision no matter what, no
Okay.
matter how I feel.
Yeah.
And let's talk about this to our teenagers. Like, hey, you will falling in love and it's a normal thing.
Right.
You know, you will get aroused, attracted. You know what it's
And that is
love.
normal. That is nature.
Normal. That
It's
is
natural.
nature. Human nature.
So if you are a father, please talk to your son how you behave
Right.
when you have like a lot of things in your mind, you know, when you are like spraying with a lot of hormones, and when you
Right.
are like woman, how you really try to be fit,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know, with all the changing, with all the pressure.
I think
and
that's also
everything
why
else.
it's really important to create a very good relationship with your
Yes.
kids, right?
Yes.
Where they can then be open and
Yeah.
transparent.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And-
Even sometimes you will get shocked.
Yeah.
Because they will give you like problems like
Questions.
Yeah.
Right?
Sometimes questions you don't have the answers to,
Exactly.
right?
And sometimes, because, you know, as someone from an Indonesian household, my mom and dad, my parents, they were also raised in a very traditional and conventional Indonesian family.
Right.
So it was not accustomed for them to talk about sexual matters. So that's why they actually realized that I need to learn about that, and they could not really talk about it, so they gave me books. They gave me books about what sexual things, but what I found lacking from books are nowadays, even from way back when, there has been no conversation and there's no topic about consent. And what I love
Yeah.
being, you know, talking with Mbak Zoya is actually from the couple of years back, you've been talking about how people are actually needing consent when it comes to sexual activities, right? I mean, me as a man in this kind of environment, I might not get lots of you know, sexual harassment verbally or non-verbally, but I have a sister. I have lots of female friends, Karina, Caroline, Rahmalandi, and lots of my female friends that I care about, that I dear the most. And I feel like as a man, I have to be able to stand up for them.
Yeah.
And, you know, telling men, this is my responsibility, to telling my fellow men that, hey, you need a consent to do anything.
True.
Even, okay, so this is
Yeah,
something that we need to emphasize, Mbak Zoya. Can you please tell our audience over here this morning how important is the implementation
Yep.
of asking consent?
Yes.
yeah.
How far?
As simple as if we're not asking consent, it's a rape.
Right.
And if we're not asking consent, if we assume we contribute to the rape culture, and that's really awful because rape, you know, and violence, kind of harassment, you know, sexual assault is not happen in
Even
one
in
night.
marriage?
Even in marriage, marital
Okay.
rape,
Marital
family
rape.
That's a
marital rape,
thing.
right? There's a
Right.
thing. Dating rape. For instance, like this, if I want to, let's talk about like a little bit more adult, yeah?
Right.
They have consent to having a sexual intercourse, for
Yeah.
instance,
Right.
yeah? And they just like adult and they have a premarital sex, and when they separate and the boys, the man's actually asking like, hey, can I have your, you know, breast pictures?
Right.
And the girl's like, oh no, it's weird. It's like, hey, I already saw that anyway, we have sex. The consent of having a sexual intercourse is different with the consent for me giving my naked picture to you. The consent of me want to having sex today doesn't mean I want to having sex tomorrow at the same
Right.
time.
Oh.
You know, you cannot assume about such thing like this.
So when you say yes today, it doesn't mean it's always a yes.
It's always a yes.
Yeah.
You know, if I most likely wanting sex in the morning, do I always want sex in the morning? You know, you cannot say something like that. So if you're not able to say anything, if you're drunk, it's not consent. If you are
Oh,
wearing
true.
something sexy, it's not consent.
Right, right.
Consent is a clear yes, I want it.
So yes is yes and no,
No
means
is
no.
no. Right.
Yeah. So don't assume something like this, especially people who actually like to watching porn. Yeah. They just like some like, oh, the girl will just actually wink at me. It's a code because,
No.
or sometimes some of the ladies, this is a myth, right? Sometimes ladies say no because they mean yes. They want us to chase them. It's like, if they say no and don't do that, even they
Yeah.
tease you that way, just don't.
That's not consent.
That's not
Yeah.
consent.
That's not consent.
Wow, no, for sure. And I think
Because if we assume,
Yeah.
we contribute to the rape culture.
Right.
You know, oh, boys will be boys. You know,
Yeah.
girls always
yeah,
like.
because we hear that a lot, right? Like boys will be boys, and it's always we hear it more from the men's side,
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
Hans? And I think what the statement that you've just shared earlier is so true because as a man, and I feel like as a woman, I feel like sometimes it's more up to the men, if that makes sense, than it is just for us. And
Yeah.
I think as women, it's so important we stand our ground into giving our consent. To saying if it's yes, it's a yes, it's a no, then please respect the no.
It is also
Right?
important for you women to know your rights.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's also to understand, to realize that you have the authority over your body.
No.
Right?
Sure, yeah.
And so when it comes to consent, we know that we need a yes means yes, no means no. So
Silence.
other than that means
no.
rape. Other than
Yeah.
that means rape.
Yeah.
And now let's move back to the World Sexual Health Day. We were talking about the sexual transmitted
Right.
infection.
Yeah.
Let's say things have been done already, and someone is contracted by the infections. What is actually the first thing that ones need
Damage
to do?
control.
Damage control, yes.
Go to the doctors.
Right.
Please don't go to dukun.
Wait, people still do
people
that?
go-
Oh my word, yes.
Really?
You know what?
Really?
I like to.
I love how we're both like, what?
Because
Okay.
it's illogical for me. Like
No,
people going to
think so
Dukun
too.
feel
It's
like,
health. It's
Oh my
regarding
God,
your health.
people
You
in
can't put it-
Indonesia really still believe in the myth. For instance, I go to Puskesmas a lot, right?
Yeah.
I talk about HIV and secondary
Yeah.
campaign and everything else. But the things that I like the most when I go to Puskesmas, I talk to the nurse and the
Puskesmas is a
doctors.
community health center, by the way.
Oh yes,
to get you the
community health
context.
center.
Yes, please.
And this is very inclusive already in Indonesia. It's very good, you know. And when I'm talking to the nurse and the
Yeah.
doctor in there, it's like, okay, so the most funniest thing when you're taking care of people who have like potential with this transmitted infection, what is that? These days, Mbak Zoya, just like
These days.
if you know, if they actually really want to prevent without using condoms, sometimes after a sexual intercourse with a prostitute or you know with like a lot of partner, they clean their genitals, especially their penis, with toothpaste.
I'm sorry.
Wait, what?
Toothpaste.
Shut up. Toothpaste?
Toothpaste.
I've heard of toothpaste clearing acne, but this is new.
Toothpaste.
Toothpaste?
You know, alcohol swab. And sometimes when after they having sex and they feel like, oh my God, I need to be clean, they drink an antibiotics. And I was like, oh my God, you know what? Okay, if you hear this, don't drink antibiotics if you don't have any disease or not being diagnosed by the doctor. Because if you drink an antibiotics and you get the disease, it's not going to prevent you, but it's going to make you immune
To the
pathogens,
antibiotics.
To the antibiotics that you use. That's crazy, right? So don't.
Wow.
I'm just trying to process that still.
So if you got that, you know,
Okay.
this is a very inclusive healthcare in Indonesia already,
Yeah.
even in a puskesmas kind of stuff, you know. You can access that, it's very cheap. Some of you don't even have to pay.
Right.
You know, you can go to there and you just pay like 5,000 rupiah, like seriously, 5,000 rupiah. It's in Jakarta.
Yeah, in
Yeah.
Jakarta at
Even
least.
in other places, it's like cheaper. And you can just like, okay, I need to test my blood for sexually transmitted infection
Yeah.
or for HIV.
Right.
You know, that's why I'm really appreciate the government who's actually make rules. If you want to get married these days, you really need to check
Yeah,
that if
that's-
you have
that's
a
true.
sexual transmitted infection and with HIV. Even, knock on wood,
Yep.
if you really have an HIV positive, yeah, it still can be treated by ARV. Yeah, so there's a medication, there's a counseling that will help you to get through everything. Even you want to, oh, I cannot have kids if I get HIV. Oh, these days there's a viral load test, and there's a lot of things, prevention and how to taking care. And you can be HIV positive, healthy person these days. So there's always a solution.
Right.
Just please don't be your own doctor. Don't Google
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
diagnose yourself like that. Like
Yeah. Go to a
please go to the
specialist.
doctors
Yeah.
Please.
and figure out together so they can also recognize who your last partner you having sex with. They will help you call them without letting you know that, oh, you're the one who actually tell them, because
Right.
we need to prevent
Right.
that.
Now, I think shedding some light on that specifically, Zoya, and just focusing it on teenagers, we'd say. I feel like, you know, the lack of transparency and openness that we have in being able to talk about it sometimes gets them to make bad decisions. And sometimes, you know, at such a young age, they're already going through what you just said. But obviously, maybe teenagers are like, young adults don't have the mental capacity as an adult would. And so what advice would you give to, say, teenagers who are maybe going through that, who's unfortunately, you know, transmitted the disease? Like, what can they do as like the first few steps into seeking help from a professional?
Yeah.
Psychologically, probably. Yeah?
Psychologically, yeah.
First of all, you are allowed to feel awful.
Right.
You are allowed to feel low, because most people in Indonesia, it's a toxic positivity.
Yeah.
Oh, you can get through this.
Right.
Just think positive. No, if you are sad, please cry.
Right.
You know, just process your feelings, because this is a sad thing.
Yeah.
You make a bad decision over your sex life, and they allowed to feel bad about that. After feel bad, you cannot just punish them because, oh my God, you are so a bad person because you're doing this and this. It's like, okay, how do you feel about that bad decision? How can I help you as a parent?
Right.
How can I help you maybe as a friend to help you to get through this, to help you fix your mistake?
Right.
That is the most important. Please be no judgmental kind of parents or friends,
Right.
because judging somebody else will prevent them to access the help that they actually really need. You
Yeah.
know?
That's true.
In so many ways, our judgment is actually the one biggest thing that will prevent everybody to access health care in Indonesia. And that sucks.
Yeah,
All right.
sure.
So, what message that you want to convey, that you want to give to the boys and girls who might be watching at the moment when it comes to the importance of reproductive health and consent?
First of all, boys and girls, if you listen to me, that sex is actually really good. Yeah, it's actually really good. So, in terms to make sure you can enjoy sexual health, it's very important to appreciate yourself first. Understand what you want, put meaning on your own sexuality before you engaging in other people. Because even, you know, never have sex until you're really ready, emotionally especially.
True.
And I really suggest you to having sex after you get married. If you want to understand, oh, I want to know the sexual compatibility and so on and so forth, of course, but you can really talk about it first.
Right.
Talk about your value, you know, be a good friend to them.
Yep.
And at the end, if you want to know the sexual compatibility, you can talk about that
Right.
too first before you actually engage in a sexual intercourse with other person.
Lovely. Thank you so much. This is what I love about, talking and conversing with Mbak Zoya. Everything is actually very in its own stage.
Right.
Its own stage, and also it's very elaborative. So I got lots of insights from her Instagrams at zoya.amirin in a second. So zoya.amirin is not only about your sexual health educations, but also how you could actually understand about sexual consent. And also, I love what she elaborated about toxic masculinity, because
Yeah.
it is actually close to me. Me and my male friends, me and my fellow men, we need to understand that more, because our culture nowadays is very patriarchal.
Yeah.
It's very patriarchal.
Yep.
So everything is somehow felt misogynistic for me.
Right.
Even me as a man. I mean, like, why do you have to put women in such corner and in such boxes? And Mbak Zoya, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much, Ms. Zoya. I learned so much today, and it was really nice and insightful.
I know,
being
right?
Able to just talk so openly about this.
Yeah, and normalize talking about sexual
Yes.
educations with your children, because they will need it as important as all those educations that you've been giving them all this times. Mbak Zoya, and also thank you for being you. Thank you for everything that you've shared. Please do take care and stay healthy.
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Zoya.
And let's take a break, but we will have more updates from around the world when we return. Stay with us.